welcome, and thank you for coming to Durango Diaries. Sponsored by Durango and Silverton Narrow Gauge Railroad Brew Train tonight, and we thank them for making this possible. A quick rundown on tonight. We're going to give each of these guys 10 minutes to talk about craft brewing. They all come from unique perspectives on that. We got Dave Thibodeau. He's co-founder of two award-winning businesses, Ska Brewing, which began in 1995 in the corner of a small warehouse in Durango, and Peach Distillers, which opened in 2005 in Palisade. As president and co-founder of Ska, Dave's days are mostly spent overseeing operations of the brewery, but he never passes up an opportunity to take advantage of the outdoor lifestyle in Durango.
We've been around for 23 years now. We opened in 1995. Thanks to Shane and the Herald and the Powerhouse Science Center and the Brews Train for having me. I want to tell you a quick story, and actually, this is a comic book we wrote about our entirely embellished existence. I don't have a lot of copies of this, but there's a couple here if you guys just want to flip through it afterwards. There's a couple that a few of you guys could take. I'm going to tell you the real story, or at least as I remember it. It's going to be quick, though. These are my two partners, Bill Graham and Matt Vincent. That's myself. You saw it takes characters to brew beer with character. You can kind of see that's the real deal at the brewery. And I'm proud to say after 23 years, we're still independently owned, and it's still the same three of us, and we're still equal partners. It's been a fantastic 23 years with these guys, and you could tell with personalities like this, it's not a difficult job. A little bit about how I got on this path. It was laid out for me at a pretty young age. So, yeah, that's me at 6. That's me a year later. As a matter of fact, my parents had the foresight, or I guess it's an eerie bit of foreshadowing. When I was a senior in high school, they were asked to send in a photo of all of us seniors as kids with a little message. So it's go for it, Dave. So that's me venturing out into the world when I was a senior in high school, graduating in 1986. Obviously, they knew a little more than I did about the future that lay before me. About that same time, my best friend Bill, who's still my partner to this day, we're in my dad's living room, and we stumbled across this beer book. And I'll say that we weren't bad students, but we certainly weren't model students. We partied a lot, and we weren't legally old enough to be doing the things that we were doing. And we stumbled across this, and it turns out that this was my dad's homebrewing logbook. He was starting to brew beer in 1969, and the log sheets went from 1969 to 1980. Funny thing is, homebrewing wasn't even legalized until 78 when Jimmy Carter signed that legislation. So thanks, Dad, for being the role model that you were. This is actually the first batch right here in 1969. And you can see, if you see up where it's recipe, 10 gallons water, 10 gallons sugar. That's not beer, Dad. That's prison moonshine. So they do get better by 1980, I promise. I'm not going to go through all of them, but it was pretty funny. I look at his comments. Tasted August 27th, 2-2 active, all over floor upon opening. Never would have guessed. But nonetheless, you can kind of see like my background and how maybe I fell into something maybe wasn't all entirely me. We finally, after homebrewing, fast forward say 9-10 years to the mid-90s. This is me now living in Durango. I moved to Durango in 93. This is 95. And this is my friend Scott Smith. Some of you guys might know him as a professional photographer in town, the Image Smith, and that's me. What we did was, after a number of being turned down by being told really by everybody we talked to that it was a crazy idea and we would never be able to pull it off, and of course we had no money. We went to the SBA with a business plan, basically a comic book sketched out on the back of a napkin, and the SBA laughed us out of the room and And then all of our friends who knew a little bit and didn't have a lot of confidence in us said the same thing. You're a little crazy. It's not going to happen. Probably shouldn't go through with this. We're not going to fund this. We did end up procuring a small loan from Bill's dad, and that enabled us to buy a small brew system out of a brewery in Spokane called the Birkebeiner Brewery. And it was pretty funny. I mean, we had absolutely no money. I lived in my car. I lived in a Volkswagen bus here in Durango that first year. And we went up to Spokane to buy this small brew house because they were putting in a bigger one. And we were doing things like, instead of getting a hotel, we slept in the foyer of the airport. And they had the doors that opened into the actual airport, and then there was a little foyer space, and then there was the doors that opened out into the parking lot. The doors that opened out in the parking lot were open all night long, but the doors that were open into the actual airport didn't open until about 6 o'clock in the morning. So at 6 o'clock in the morning, people started showing up to catch flights, and we were lying there in our sleeping bags, and they kind of had to kick us out of the way to get into the airport. But that was how little money we had. We couldn't get a hotel or anything. So we went around the western slope of Colorado and started, unfortunately, a lot of the smaller family dairies and farms had closed down over the recent years, and we started just finding tanks like this that were stainless steel that we could either use or retrofit or trade for tanks that we could actually brew beer with. So a lot of this running around, this is Corky the farmer up in Paonia, actually Cedar Ridge, and we did a lot of that, and that's how we cobbled together the rest of our equipment to get started. This is basically this is the beginning of the brewery. This is the space, this is one of our tanks, this is what it looked like. That was where we were getting before we started. Now the other aspect to this is we had a partner who was the brewer at the Wynkoop Brewery in Denver, which was Colorado's first brew pub. And he was friends with Bill Carver, who's in our audience over here. And sorry, Bill, there's a picture of you. I didn't know Bill was going to be here. He set up a meeting with Bill Carver, and I was really intimidated. We were going to go meet with Bill Carver, this pioneering brewer. For me, somebody I was incredibly intimidated to tell our story to, and that we were going to try and open up a brewery. And so we set up this meeting with Bill and told him what we were up to, and the first words out of Bill's mouth were, "I'll put you on tap." And it set a precedent that we still live by this day. I was so afraid to talk to Bill, and then he just showed me what community was really all about. Not just the community of Durango, but the community of craft brewers. And it stuck with my heart, and it stuck with us. It's one of our core values to this day. So thank you, Bill, for doing that. Once again, I didn't know Bill was going to be here. But yeah, our first account in Durango. So here we are. We actually opened up in this little space out in Thibodeau. Speaking of community, a number of years went by, and we realized, let's work together with the other breweries, that collectively we can work with them. And we sort of formed a philanthropic umbrella organization called the Durango Bootleggers Society. And this was where we could all kind of share it was a bit of a burden because there's so much nonprofits and a lot of people in need, and it all means a lot. It's very meaningful here in Durango, but it's a lot to shoulder when you're a small brewery living on tiny margins. So collectively, we formed the Bootleggers Society to start working on some of these things together. So we still, to this day, work together as a community to try and help out the nonprofits and the people in need in the community of Durango. This is the brewery today, quite a bit different from the pictures I was just showing you. It's amazing to think about how far we've come. We had a lot of really easy years there. After, say, the mid-2000s until 2 years ago, maybe a year ago. When we started, there was under 800 breweries. You can see this curve, what just happened the last couple of years. So we're having some big challenges ahead of us. Our model is we're set up to brew a lot of beer. We're a manufacturing plant. We brew a lot of beer and we sell it in other markets. And now there's at the end of 2017, there was 6,300 breweries in the country. Less than 800 when we started, so that's almost a 700% increase in the number of breweries. So a lot of challenges when you're trying to sell beer in Chicago or Texas, where the breweries have grown by 700%, but the shelf space hasn't grown at all. So it's incredibly difficult to us. So the question is, how do you remain relevant now, when you have our business model, which isn't very sustainable. And it's really difficult. One of the things we did was we put in this new brewery actually in our warehouse. It's a smaller brewery that allows us to do a lot of experimental beers, like the beer I was drinking, the beer you see here, Pink Vapor Stew. It's a sour beer made with beets and ginger and carrots, which sounds a little crazy. I saw that you were drinking one, and yeah, and it's taken off. It's done really good things for us. Doing things like that, getting experimental, diversifying our revenue streams and our businesses. We have a separate wholesaler business. My partner Matt has Ska Fabricating, making canning line equipment. As Shane mentioned earlier, we also have a distillery. It's hard, but you got to keep thinking, what are we going to do moving forward? Thing is, I don't know the answer. So if any of you guys have any suggestions, I'm open to them as far as remaining relevant in a crowded marketplace. But in the end, if we don't make it, I'm hoping that we've fostered enough camaraderie over the years, and if the ska part disappears out of this model, that maybe I'm friends enough with some of these other breweries in town that we can go back and maybe I can just get a job there. So, thank you guys.